Hey. I'm Jason Freeman, the host of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Welcome to episode number 63. I just love interviewing guests about the brilliance and and it just inspires me every week, and this week is no exception. And I hope, as I interview guests about their brilliance, you begin to see some parts of your own brilliance that you've maybe discounted. Something else I do, or main other thing I do, is I'm a professional speaker who ironically has a speech impediment. I specialize in speaking to junior high and high school students about kindness, courage, perseverance, and confidence. You have to say in confidence. How could you say it any other way? There's a lot of other ways you could say it. But today, this Wednesday, I felt like saying in confidence. Try that at home if you want to. Anyway, my mic just fell on my computer, but it's okay. So, I'm thrilled to have a great guest today. She's really helping us all like embrace all areas of our life and relate to ourselves differently and relate to other people differently so we can bring more of our goodness into the world. So let me tell you a little more about her in her words. As the 2019 LA Lakers businesswoman in the 2015 California Charter Teacher of the Year, Genein Letford is a national thought leader and creator of the concept Intercultural Creativity. She is the founder and chief executive at CAFFE Strategies LLC, which is a consulting, coaching, and training company that trains, check this out, C3 executives and employees to create sustainable organizational equality and inclusion strategies, while at the same time unleashing the innovative thinking for themselves and in their businesses. She recently published her first children's book, I Am Creative, with, check this out, her 3-year-old son, Shawn Letford. Genein believes creative thinking thrives in an inclusive environment, and she is often called America's creative coach for her work in reigniting intercultural creativity within our workforce. Please, without further ado, help me welcome Genein Letford. Yay!
So good to be here, Jason. So good to see you again.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. It's such an honor to get to talk to you. Welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Glad to be here.
So shall we get right into it?
Let's go jump in. That's what we do, right? We jump in.
Yeah, yeah. So Janine, growing up, did you imagine that you would be on the expansive path you are on now?
Yeah. My third grade teacher would actually be very surprised to see me here because she had to send me to speech therapy 3 times a week to work on my speaking. I was a stutterer, still am a stutterer, and there's several times I could even say my own name fluently. I still stutter, like I said, in my adulthood, and it's been a journey. It's been a journey from the speech therapy room to the TEDx stage to here with you today. So I feel connected to you because I know we both have are dealing or have dealt with just wanting to share our message with the world, but having obvious obstacles in our place. So people can hear me and say, "What? She doesn't stutter," but it does come up in a it has was very severe in my childhood, youth, and in my early adulthood.
Well, that that that's thanks for talking about that a little bit. We've known each other for a few years, and you told me that story way when we met. But I actually didn't remember that story.
Yeah, it's a big
Well,
part. If people have asked me, if I could be born again without the stutter, would I choose to do so? And first your impulse is like, well, yeah, but it made me think. To going back to your first question, like, did I think I would be on the path I am on to today? The way that I got here and the struggles I had to get to go or struggles I had to go through to get here, I wouldn't be the woman I am standing before you
mm,
today without that, without struggling, without getting my self confidence and falling several times and getting on stage and not being able to speak and wanting to introduce myself to someone and my name gets stuck in my throat. And, we have all these other normal physical reactions just to normal intimidating situations. But then to add our speech impediment on top of that, it's a big mind boggling, shifting things that we have to deal with that a lot of people don't see. There's like the iceberg. You see the top of the iceberg, but there's this huge, massive entity underneath. And you and I dealt with this our huge, massive entity underneath that we've constantly, daily. Like no one wakes up in the morning and says, "I wonder if I can say my name fluently today." Like very like just we understand that, and
yeah,
I wonder if
yeah,
I can pick up the phone and leave a message. Like those are the things that we struggle with, but we just keep on getting up. Yeah, getting up. It's a new day, a new chance to try again.
well, so much life. I mean, we both have had verbal things we've dealt with and navigated, and
Mhm.
so many. It occurs to me having this conversation that so many people have feel impeded in one way or another in life, even if they don't have like a
Mhm.
verbal impediment. And in one way people often come to feel impeded is around that creativity.
Yeah, good connection. I love that way to weave that in, right? Yeah, creativity is such an interesting word, and it's such an ill-defined word because you can say that word and it means different things to different people. First of all, you have a third of the population that thinks creativity is only artistry. So they're saying, "I can't sing, I can't dance like Justin Timberlake, so I'm not creative." And they're saying this and their subconscious is hearing it. And because of self-fulfilling prophecy, that anything you repeat over and over again, comes to be. And so we need to redefine this word, that creativity isn't only artistry. Artistry is a section of it, and you can certainly enhance your creative thinking in non-arts areas through the arts, right? But creativity is found in all fields, and we are proposing a new definition for creativity. And we're saying creativity is the process of problem finding and problem solving with relevance, value, and novelty. Highly creative people are able to be curious and ask questions and say, "Well, why is it this way? Why are we doing it that way?" And they're able to look at different ways to solve problems, and they're able to kind of release from the system's way of doing this and kind of engage like a childlike. We need to differentiate childlike and childish. You're not asking you to be childish. We're asking you to be childlike, and just have that wonder with the mundane. Have a new way of looking at ordinary things. And so creative people are able to do that. And that's one way that we need to get creativity back, which is now listed as a number one skill, creativity and in innovation, the number one skill needed in the workforce. So this is not a nice to have. This is actually a must have and a requirement to move our nation and our world forward.
Oh my goodness! Everything you say brings up like a ton of different questions. So first of all, what would you say to someone who's like, wait, Janine, like, why would I want to find problems? I already have enough.
I know. Well, there's a lot of things that we're just not noticing. I have the 7 gems of intercultural creativity. That's the bulk of my work now and my research. And the gems are like mindset, empathy, cultural observation, cultural curiosity, perspective shifting, authentic adaptation, and being a bridge. And so if we're just blindly going through life, and I think a lot of us might be feeling like, oh, I'm just, get up, you're in a routine and you're not paying
Mm.
attention to any external or other things that might be the answer we're looking for. And so people may say, yeah, I already have I already have problems. I'm not trying to go out and find problems. So you can replace that word with challenges, with just, just new ways of looking at things. And I have an avocado story that I share, that I didn't eat an avocado until I was 25 years old. And my friend was like, why haven't you put an avocado on your hamburger? And I was like, I don't know, because I had tried it today and I love it. It's like nature's butter. It's beautiful. And so I went home and I said, Mom, why have I not had avocados before? And she plainly said, because I don't like avocado. And so that showed me, because she was the controller of the culture of the home. When I say culture, I don't just mean ethnicity and nationality. I mean, a culture is a group of people or an entity with verified systems, beliefs, and values. Because she was the controller of the culture of the home, and she didn't like avocado. She inhibited it from coming into the home. And so that's a funny story. I was like, Mom, you kept 25 years of avocados from me because you don't like avocados? And I say that's a funny story, but that has a very serious point, because other people aren't exposed to more serious things than avocados, just because it just wasn't entered into their home. Other types of people, other types of beliefs. Not saying you have to, like, either whether faith beliefs or just other beliefs about just things. Not saying you have to like convert or whatever, but just being aware that other people may not believe everything that you believe, and that's okay. But you're able to connect with them and think of more creative ideas when you're just aware that there's other types and other processes of existence.
Wow. Well, if anyone has a question or a question for Janine, comment, please chime in. Thanks. So, this brings up the point of how creative, how so, creativity uh, options were kind of sculpted by the culture we live in, and sometimes if someone doesn't like avocados, we suddenly think we don't like avocados. But also so many of us have been injured in the past, like we worked real hard on an art project and we gave it to the teacher and we are like, see this brilliance, and the teacher's like, oh, that's not good. You need to change this, and so how do we begin to heal when we don't trust our creativity?
Ooh, that's a great question. I sat down with a student not too long ago, about a year and a half ago, and she was a senior in high school. And she did her very best on something we have in California, called the AP. exams. And we looked at how the teacher was saying, okay, you're doing your AP exam. If you want to get a five, you need to do it this way, this, and this. And she submitted her essay, and she was like, the teacher was like, nope, you need to do it this way, this exact way in order to get a five. And I was just thinking, well, what is that communicating to our students? That you thought about your position with whatever the content was, and you backed it up with research, and you defended it well. If it needs to be one exact way for everyone, there's your conformity effect, right? And so we
Mm.
need our students to be divergent thinkers. There's the divergent thinking and convergent thinking. They're both important, but if we only focus on convergent thinking, which is everyone coming to one answer at all times, and we don't let our people think divergently, then you will have a workforce that only thinks convergently with one answer, and you don't getting all these other things. And so Christopher, who is one of your audience members right now, sharing some comments. Hi, Chris. You know, they know, and other people know the importance of allowing our children and our students and our team members give these divergent ideas. And in order to do that, you have to have a classroom and an organization of psychological safety, of inclusion, and they need to be able to challenge the status quo. And so if you have an educator or a boss who does not want anyone to challenge what they say, there is your squashing. And if
Mm.
children
Mm.
get their curiosity squashed and your creativity
Mm.
squashed,
Mm.
it could be redeveloped, but it's difficult because don't forget they come to earth with it. No one has to teach a child how to be curious. No, you're like, here's how to be curious. Step one. If you have an infant or a toddler at home, they will teach you how to be curious. You don't have to teach them. They know what to do. Trust me, I have a 3-year old.
And this is a perfect segue. You have a 3-year old who is a published author.
Yeah. And I did that on purpose. Number one, I feel like I'm put on this earth to be an example. Sometimes people need to see it done to know that they can do it themselves. And so who said you needed to be an adult to publish a book? Like, where did that rule come from? Like, it's invisible, right? Right, Tim? You have an audience member, Tim, who's agreeing with this. So I know this resonates with the people who you're reaching out to. And so I just said, well, what if Shawn wrote a book? Because he's already creative. What if he could teach the world how to be creative? Now, of course, he didn't sit down at the computer and type it out. I had to assist him with that. But all the illustrations are him doing things that he does every day. Besides this, besides him being in a hot air balloon with other children and no adult, that has not happened.
Good-
but 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 him, like this picture, he's looking at his drone, which he does own, and his stuffed animal. He's saying, well, okay, how is a drone like my owl? Like, what do they have in common? That's making unobvious associations, which is a big creative skill. Your children do that automatically. And so he's just going through his life being creative, and I'm just writing it down and put it in poem form. So you can get this at JeneinLetford.com, and if you want Shawn to sign it, he will. And it's a great holiday gift, whichever holiday you may or may not celebrate.
it's a
But yeah,
beautiful book.
yeah.
Show the illustrations one more
Oh
time,
yeah,
just.
sure. And he actually owns these. Where's the camera? There we go. No, there we go. There you go.
Ah,
And so the one thing I want to make sure people understand is in the classroom, sometimes we do like a I do, we do, you do. Sometimes we just let the kids do and go for it. But I do this with him because when he gets to be five, or actually now, by 5, 6, 7, he's going to be writing his own books. He has to talk to the illustrator to communicate how he wants it illustrated. He has to go through the things. And right now, he has a chart where, okay, how many books did I sell this month? He does earn money. This is going into his college fund, and he has to keep track. So
ah,
as an educator, I know I can bring in the math, I can bring in the English language arts, I can bring in the illustrations, and have him do the work and lead him. And then he's able to do it on his own. So by the time he graduates high school, he should have at least 15 books published because our
oh
kids have
my
to write.
gosh.
Our kids have to write,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Right, Jason? They have to write.
Oh
Why
my
don't they just
gosh.
throw it on Amazon for 99 cents? His grandmother will buy it. I don't care if his grandmother is the only one who purchases the book. It's the concept that I'm planting. I'm telling Shawn, you are a creator. You're not here to consume and to buy things from Target every day. You are a creator. And so for him to understand it and be a part of his identity, he has to start now, and to just like I brush my teeth every morning, I publish a book once a year. Bam, done.
You're expanding my mind. You're expanding possible. Wow. So Tim asked again where said he wants to buy the book and asked where to get it. So that's uh, that's how you spell your website, right?
Yes, JeneinLetford.com.
And that's how you spell your name too.
Yes, yes.
Except the .com, but probably it's not in your name.
Probably. And
So,
you're the author of an amazing book too that I have, like awfully awesome. And just so you doing that and putting your story out there for the world to share. One of the gems in my 7 gems of intercultural creativity, feel free to grab it while I talk, um, is perspective shifting. And I have a podcast episode on my podcast with Dr. Michael Platt, episode 66 on the Create and Grow Rich podcast. And he is a neuroscientist out of the Wharton Business School. And he talked about the importance of perspective shifting. So when you get Awkwardly Awesome from Jason Freeman, you will have had perspective shifted into his viewpoint of what life is like with his experiences, his struggles, his network, his family life, and just the ups and downs of the things that he has experiences. And so that was profound for me because, we're different genders, we're different ethnicities, and we've had different experiences. But now I get to almost stand behind you and walk through life with you because I read your book, Jason. And so that adds another element and another facet. My my logo for my company is a diamond, so I'm all about the facets, and we're multifaceted. But perspective shifting is
wow.
going to be a huge key for leaders too. Leaders of organizations need to know how to perspective shift, and by reading your book, that's just one way to do it.
Wow. Thanks. Thank. So what would you say to someone who's like getting into the podcast and oh and wow, I see your son being an author and wow,
Mhm.
I see how you've been creative, Janine, but you know what? I need to make money. I can't afford to be creative.
I can't afford
What
to
will
be
you
creative.
tell that person?
Good question. Thank you, because it's a real thing. I have mouths to feed. I've a dependent, and I am married, but I wasn't married all the time, and so you have to understand that real life aspect. And what I advise people with that is start small. But the thing is to start, right? That's an action word. That's a movement word. And the word emotion and motivate come from the same Latin, to movere, to move. And so when you get emotionally inclined, and emotionally attached to what you're doing and you're passionate about what you're doing, you're going to move. You're motivated to move. And so if you start small, I was teaching. I'm an educator by trade, a credentialed teacher, and I started a Toastmasters while teaching, and I
Mm,
started photography. I went to a local community college and started. I just took a random photography class. As a teacher, I signed up for these random trips that would take you around the country, and even Hilton even sent me to Japan and Korea to do some cultural curriculums, and I would just go
mm,
for it. And we have a lot of opportunities that just are there, but opportunity doesn't sit and park and wait for you, right? It doesn't park for you. Here it comes, there it goes, and so you just got to jump on it. And a lot, if you read the articles of nurses who work with the dying, especially the aged who are dying, a lot of their regrets are the things that they didn't do, that they wanted to do. They felt the urge to jump and they didn't because they had bills. And so, of course, we're always going to have bills, but you weren't put on this earth to pay bills. You were put on this earth to give us your contributions, your unique contributions. And so that's why I use the diamond, because whatever your unique gift is, it's for us. And it's not to be to conformed and to be uniform. We're to be united, but not uniform. There's a difference in
We
those
ought
two
to be united but not uniform. It's amazing. We
words.
ought to be united but not uniform. And you're making my job easy because you sum me up perfectly again. Would you please read the section from Debt to Destiny?
Sure. This is my first book that if they talk about, writing a book is like birthing a baby. It's a process. And I was actually pregnant when this book was being written, and almost didn't get done. But once the first book is done, the rest just come flowing out, right?
So
And this
so
was
so so wait to the sometimes we think I'll do something someday when I have nothing going on, like I'll write a book someday when I have nothing going on. You were pregnant when you wrote this?
Yes, pregnant, and then he was born, and it was published on June 19th, 2019. So he was born in 2018. So it took me about 3 years to write this. This book, this Seven Gems, took me. The idea, the term came to me November 28th, 2020, and then the book came to me via at my doorstep exactly a year later to the day, November 28th, 2021.
Oh my
Crazy. I was like,
gosh,
Jason,
so
I can't make this up.
inspiring.
I can't make this up. So the more you do it, the faster it gets. But this one took about 3 years. And this was my story of paying off $100,000 worth of debt with a UCLA graduate and no financial literacy at all. So I was, $100,000 worth of debt, and wondering, why am I a college educated woman and I have no clue how credit cards work? I have no
Hmm.
clue how interest payments work, and investing works. And like, why is that? That's odd. Or is it planned that way? Hmm. But I won't go into that right now. Um, but just a story. So I talk about the psychology of money, but also my own story, and then I give you tips on how I did it and what you should think about if you're trying to do it as well. And you wanted me to read a section?
Yeah. First, Tim says June 19th is my birthday.
Well, that's a special day, Tim, because it is also a holiday that now a lot of people know about, but years ago they didn't. It's called Juneteenth. It was actually
Hmm.
when the enslaved people in the Texas area actually found out that they were free, and they didn't know. And so I was actually in New York City in the financial district, for a board meeting when I got the email on June 19th that this book was published. And so I thought, see, there I go again, making connections. I wrote a book about financial freedom, and I'm in the financial district in New York. And you tell me the book is published on the day that my ancestors celebrated their freedom.
That's goosebumpy. Oh my
and
gosh.
and it was Tim's birthday too. So now I'll always remember Tim when I think about the birthday of my book.
Mhm.
And so what this says is reevaluating success. So we need to be mindful of how we define things, because how we define things is how we place it in our identity, and then how we walk that out into our life. And there's a quote by the Dalai Lama that says, "Man surprised me most about humanity because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health, and then he's so anxious about the future that he doesn't enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present nor the future. He lives as if he is never going to die, and then dies having never lived." And Jason wanted me to read this section. It says, "We spend the first half of our lives learning. We acquire skills, memorize formulas, and if we're lucky, we get to develop creative skills in preparation to work and hopefully contribute. We're then catapulted into the workforce for 25 or 30 years, earning a living to provide for our families and ourselves. We blindly go through our checklist of life goals: get the degree, get the car, get the spouse, get the house, get the better car, get the bigger house, and for some, get a prettier, younger spouse. But we've been conditioned to set our goals on which item do we upgrade next." Melody Hobson, president of Ariel Investments, puts it best. When you're always wanting more money, you find out that it's just equates to another suit or an additional room in the house. After a while, it doesn't do it for you anymore.
Mm.
When the sun is setting on our time here and we breathe our last breath, we realize what life is really all about. We realize that the things we work so hard to be able to buy to show others and ourselves that we made it, the cars, the huge houses, the designer shoes, the expensive knickknacks that are now collecting dust somewhere in the attic, they weren't worth our time we traded to afford them. Lying there, we realize the things in life that have the most value, the things in life we should have focused on building and cherishing, had no price tag at all. The precious things in life having the highest value items cost us nothing. Our relationships, our friendships, our connection to our Creator, our ability to give a helping hand to others. Those are the areas worth investing in and protecting.
Wow. So, what fascinates me about it, I mean, a few things. It's such a good point about how what is truly valuable in life. But also, you wrote a book on financial strategies to become financially abundant. So, how does that big picture of money is not truly an important thing tie in with the importance of financial strategies of getting out of debt
Mhm.
and
Great,
stuff?
great question. Because I believe that it's just a reframing shift. We're raised in a culture that's, and you can see it in the advertisement, that you need to base your identity off of what you have. So I'm going to base, Jason, your worth off of what car you drive, or what type of shoes you have on, and how big your bank account is. So that's the culture that we're raised on. And so I'm trying to reframe that and say, number one, your identity has nothing to do with what you own or how much money you make. And number two, um, that once you get that solidified and you are, some people have a faith-based root in that, like I do, and some people just, are, their identity is them. And so once that's there, you understand that money is a tool. That if I
Mm,
gave you a hammer, Jason, that you could go and take that hammer, you can bust somebody's windows out of their car, right? Or you can take that same hammer and you can go build a house for that family who has no place to live. Same tool,
mm,
two
mm.
completely different endpoints. And so money is a tool, hopefully for you and I, to build things for people. And so once we understand that, and understand that our creativity is connected to this tool, my tagline that I used to say a lot is, your creative health affects your financial wealth. And so
Mm.
the things that I'm creating, look at this. This is a course that I'm creating right now. You get to see it. Like, this is how it starts out. Just my ideas on a paper. I could charge, and I probably will. I could charge somebody $5,000 for a 3-hour course, that started like this. But you know where this came from? My creativity. All the services you see out there, all the things you see in your house came from someone's imagination.
Mm.
So I'm trying to get people to understand that your imagination is so important, because that's where the birthing of your ideas comes from. And then we need to get training on how to bring it into the marketplace. That's the entrepreneurship part, right? And the business aspect. 'Cause a lot of people have great ideas, they just have no clue. They have no clue about entrepreneurship. They don't know how to market and to do the business side of it. And so we need to reframe that money is a tool. Money is meant to build things and to help people and to create systems so people can thrive in their creativity. And the amount of money has no connection to who you are as a person, or your value, or your worth.
No, no more than saying I'm a good person because I have this water bottle,
Mhm. Yeah, and
right?
I go deep into it in the book. If you read the book, I go over the psychology of what advertisers are doing to make you attach your emotional identity to their product, so you will spend. They can't motivate you. Remember, movere from the Latin, they can't motivate you to spend if they don't hook onto your emotion. And so for
Mm.
us to get our emotions back into grip, to cognitively understand what's causing us to do certain actions, and then you can say, oh, they're trying to use the urgency effect of me. Oh, they're trying to use this psychological effect of me. Not working. I will buy a product when I'm ready to buy a product because cognitively I know at the right time that I need it. Like your phone. Why do we need to upgrade our phone every 6 months or 12 months? My grandmother had the same phone for 15 years, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, what are some ways we can like exercise our creativity every day? Like,
So, the number one indicator of a highly creative person is openness to experience. And number one indicator of a highly interculturally competent person, people who know how to connect with different people from different lived experiences, they are open to people with different lived experiences. So, the first thing you can do, and I intentionally do this for my family, for my son actually today, and I'll send you the pictures. you know, I, I went to a library event where the mayor happened to be there, and I'm really big on introducing myself and teaching my son how to do this. So we introduced ourselves to the mayor, and my son, I don't know if you saw the post on one of my feeds, but he is obsessed with sprinklers. So he ended, now he's 3, showing the mayor all the water spigots on the library wall. And so the mayor was intrigued by this little boy. And so he ended up telling his people to introduce Shawn to the irrigation specialist at the Parks and Recreation for our city. And that's where we were this morning. These wonderful people gave Shawn a irrigation specialist sweatshirt and a plaque thing, and took him around to show him where all the hidden sprinklers were. And then they're building a lake, so they took him in the truck to go put water over the dirt because they're still. And I'm just saying that all that happened from me just saying hi, just wanted to know you. So when you introduce yourself to different people, you're not just getting to know them and all of their wisdom and values and how they operate and seeing their empathetic connections there. You're introducing yourself to their whole network. And people can do that. That's the first thing you do. You become, when you have biases and you have do just discriminations where you separate yourself from folks, you're not only just doing that because it's wrong, right? But you're also cutting off your own creative expansions. And people don't haven't understand that. When I dislike someone because of a demographical, issue, I'm hurting myself because I am blocking that relationship from forming, and I'm blocking my creativity from growing from perspective shifting in their lived experience.
so, speaking of bias, there's some that we have that we know about, and first of all, what if we know we have a bias against a certain against anything from avocados to different ethnicities or whatever. Say we know we have that bias, and then how do we start moving beyond that bias?
That's a great question because a lot of people, first of all, if you have a brain, and yes, I do have a brain on my desk. I tell people I have a brain, and then I have this brain. So I actually have two brains. But if you have a brain, you have a bias. A great quote from Matthew Cahill, who's one of the top bias trainers. If you have a brain, you have a bias.
If you have a brain, you have a
Yeah.
bias.
So I don't care what the ethnicity you are, your age, your demographic, whatever. You do have biases. It's just the way the brain functions in order to either save energy or to protect itself. Protect, and I say that way. And so, number one, understand whatever was viewed together, right, in your formative years, gets fused together. So if you kept seeing one ethnicity or one gender with like violent experiences with that gender, then that gets fused together. So when you see that gender separately, the other element of that fusion comes to play. And so the first thing we can do is just beware. Like, if I was exposed to this demographic. Has any other type of judgmental element been fused with that demographic? Another thing we can do is be aware of our own situation. There's a great story I share with one of my intercultural trainers where he said, I was on a college campus, and I was asking my friend to go study. And it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And it was a woman said, yeah, I don't feel comfortable being on the college campus that late. And he was like, well, why? And she was like, well, I just don't feel comfortable. And he was like, was it because you're a woman? And she was like, yeah, and and for some other reason she explained. And then he said, okay, well, tell me more about your experience. And before she really gave him the full anecdotal story, she asked him to explain his experience. Well, how is it being a man on a college campus at 10 p.m. at night? And he was like, I don't know. I'm just there. I never really thought about it. And so she
Mm.
said, well, how do you expect to empathize and perspective shift to my experience if you haven't even thought about what it's like to be you, Because if you're going to perspective shift, you need to know where you're shifting from. And so I tell people, I have this thing called the diversity diamond, and it has all these demographics. Some you don't even think about. Like for you and I think about speech because that's an element within our lived
Mm.
experience. We,
Mm.
we, we both deal or have dealt with speech. So that's something that you and I are keenly aware of. Whereas other people who do not have speech impediments, like they don't think about it because they just talk it, right? And so I tell people to really think about, especially if you're in a dominant group, if you're fully body able, you don't think about buildings that don't have ramps. That just doesn't cross your mind. If you are not a nursing mother, when I had my son, I didn't even know the airports had nursing rooms. Now I see them everywhere because now it's a part of my visual field, because now it's a part of my experience. And so you can
Oh.
do that with all these demographics. And if you want the diamond, I can email it to you. I have so much stuff to send you now. But that's what we can do to start off. Think about our own demographics, especially where we're the dominant, right? If you're the dominant, like gender, ethnicity, faith, you're able-bodied, citizenship. If you live in America and you have American citizenship, you're having a different lived experience than someone who does not.
Mm.
And you have they have a concerns that you're not aware of. And so when you think about that, it's able to give you more an empathetic connection to people who may be in a marginalized group.
Then once we have an empathetic the connection, like say in the high school in the college campus story, the the man really thought about his experience as a man, and then her experience, and the empathetic connection was developed. What's the next step after that connection has been developed?
Well, then, like on my 7 gems, it goes with perspective shifting, authentic adaptation, and connecting to bridges. Once you're able to empathetically see a person's lived experience, feel sensory engagement, you're able to make accommodations. You're able allyship is a big word now, right? How to be an ally and how to advocate for someone who might be in a marginalized position. And so, in that particular case, making more appointments during the day, or just making sure there's accommodations so people aren't put in a odd position or in our awkward or in a dangerous position because you have shifted perspective, you have taken into their concerns into account and seen, if you're a 6'6", huge football player, yeah, walking the campus at 10 p.m. at night isn't, a huge thing. But if you're a 5'4", petite woman, there's different concerns. So for the football player to shift. Now, of course, I'm making assumptions as well because maybe there are 6'6" football players who don't want to walk the campus at night for other reasons, right? Like so there's so much going on there. But just people taking the time to just stop, breathe, and say everyone is not living life exactly like I am. I think the George Foreman murder really woke people's eyes up to say, wait, you're not having the same experience that I'm having. Wait, what is this? And it caused some conversations to happen, but we need to keep them going so everyone I tell people the end result is intercultural creativity. These DEI programs, these unconscious bias sessions, all the work we're trying to do in K-12, the end result for everything is intercultural creativity. And here's why. We want people to be creative with one another, with people from different lived backgrounds, wherever they are, wherever life puts them. And this pandemic has put us in some different and some pretty interesting places. We want people to be creative wherever they land. And a lot of people landed during this pandemic with not knowing what to do. And some people figured it out. They were like, okay, well, I don't have a job now. What can I do? And they started their own their dog walking businesses, and they just got creative because they looked at their strengths. And their research shows that people who know how to identify their strengths and then bring them into the marketplace, there you have it. So intercultural creativity is our end result, and I'm so excited to bring it to the world via the book Seven Gems of Intercultural, there you go, creativity. So excited. I didn't want to put my face on the cover, but someone told me I kind of had to with this term. So there you go.
I it's a great picture. So you talked about creativity on an individual level, like I'm out of a job, so I'll start a dog walking business. But how does intercultural creativity lead to innovation in a Fortune 500 company?
Well, the research is clear that diversity, and not just demographical diversity, but demographical diversity, psychographic diversity, cognitive diversity, neural diversity, all these other elements of diversity do lead to creativity because if I talked about it before, creativity sits on unobvious associations, right? Metaphorical thinking, imagination, and the cross sectional just banging up of different ways of thinking and thinking of things in different ideas and recombination of ideas. And so I tell people, if you have people who look like you, who think like you, yeah, you're all coming to consensus very quickly because you all think the same thing and you're all observing the same things, but you're also missing the same things,
Mm.
right? And there's research from Aaron Meyer, who wrote the book The Culture Map, that shows that they had people look at an aquarium and they realized people from the Western cultures were focusing more on the front part of the aquarium. People from Eastern cultures were focusing more on the background of the aquarium. So depending on what systems you grew up in, you're trained to look at different parts of the same thing. And so that's why we want to diversify the people who are looking at different parts of the same thing, because now we get to see a complete picture. And so Fortune 500 companies they're going to start to, it's already happening. They need to take heed of not just bringing in diverse perspectives and diverse voices and experiences, but here's the key word again, the psychological safety that people can speak up, people can challenge the status quo, and people can go against the convention. You know, if you have a company that says, well, this is the way we've always done it, you're going to be pretty synonymous with Blockbuster and Kodak and Radio Shack, right? Because things are
And you
happening
don't
very
want to
fast.
be synonymous with.
Yes.
So, so what was I going to say? Pausing for a station, I identify. So what are some ways we can create psychological safety in
Mhm,
our
mhm.
families and in our businesses and in our communities?
Sure.
And
Now, don't
that's a
forget.
big question, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, families, our businesses and communities, they're cultures, right? They're called cultural groups. So what I do in my family, I can translate uh, on a different level into my business and into my community as well. And one thing is purpose. People understand the purpose. People of all levels understand the purpose. So when I worked at a school, we had a plant manager who was genius, very creative. And I never want anyone to think of, oh, I'm just here, emptying the trash cans, and then they see someone like me who's, out there teaching and then getting awards and stuff like that. And I told them, yeah, I may be on the stage, getting this award, but you're right there with me. Do you know how hard it
Mm,
is to learn in a dirty classroom? You know how, and
mm,
and your job is just as important as my job. You're
mm,
keeping
mm,
this space clean for our students to come and learn and be their best and be creative. And so it's just another facet of the same diamond. And so when everyone in your organization has that connection to the purpose of why you're there and what your organization is doing,
mm,
people should be able to communicate that at every level, from CEO and everywhere else. Another aspect is to have a culturally flat organization if possible. Like I said before, my Create and Grow Rich podcast, episode 66, Dr. Michael Platt talks about how being humble, you need that to perspective shift, and you need that to be able to connect. So even if you're the CEO or in a C-suite or leadership, can the ideas get to you? Like, or is it, talk to this person who will talk to that person who will talk to this person who will tell me? If you've ever played the game telephone, that does not work, correct? And so do people have communication lines where ideas can get to different parts of the organization well? And it's more than just my door is open, because some people may not feel comfortable with that type of route. So having multiple types of routes for multiple types of communicators. Another aspect.
multiple types of roles for multiple types of communicators. I've
Yeah, so
never heard that.
I've never
That's
said that before.
powerful.
I should write that down.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, I actually should write that down. And then another thing is, you probably heard this phrase, bringing your whole self to work, right? Have you heard folks say that?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And so what they really mean is that people are don't have to hide, because don't forget, energy is finite for the day. You have only so much amount of processing um, energy and creative energy for the day. And so if you're using part of that energy to hide part of who you are, that's energy that's not utilized for creative thinking and productive thought. And so if people are able to be accepted, be respectful, but be accepted of who they are. And even, you know, when you are able to do that, you're able to tap to the other facets of work. And I have case study upon case study of people who were able to bring, their love of cooking. I karaoke sing. If they have a different orientation or a different belief, you're mindful of days they need to take off or days they can't work. You're mindful of these things, and that communicates that I see you and I support you and I value the identity that you're bringing into our organization. And so when people are able to that, then you'll start to see more creative contributions because they feel protected. It's a vulnerable act to share an idea. And so if there's there's microaggressions going on, it's toxic. There's top down commands that they don't want to hear anything from the lower levels at all. People, you're losing your best creative ideas
Mm,
if that's the type of
mm.
culture that exists.
When you talk about this, I think back to your son who could, you've helped him really focus his energy on creating a book, on becoming an author, and there's endless other places a 3 year old could focus the energy that might not be as as pleasing or as helpful.
Well, I mean, don't forget, he's still a 3-year-old. He still plays. He still gets into stuff. And I'm not saying everyone has to produce a book at 3. That's not what I'm saying. I am just saying for my home. And don't forget, I have an education background too. So I do have, once again, I have these other benefits, these other assets that other people may not be privy to. And so that's why I'm doing it, to show people that it can be done. But like I said, children have to write stories. 5, 6, 7, definitely 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and up. And a lot of times we just have them write the story, we grade it, and it ends up in a drawer somewhere. And so I'm just trying to add that extra step to it. Why don't we teach our kids that they could share their creative stories with the world? And the fact that it is not 1940, and you have Amazon and you have all these things that you can create. I mean, you probably have apps now that you can create a story or a book and get it printed. And even if you just sell one copy, it's not about selling copies to make money. It's about showing your children that they are creative. And if they choose to do so, they can share their creativity with the world. And so I'm just walking him through it now. And his next book, he has a storyboard himself. His next book is about sprinklers, and he has to tell me, okay, well, what do we want to tell the illustrator? What are you doing on this page? What are you doing on that page? Well, why? Why are you doing that? What do you want to communicate to the world? And so now I'm slowly giving the baton to him to take more control. So when he's 6 or 7 or 8, he'll be able to do this on his own, and all I have to do is press send, and and he's able to do it on their own. So not telling everyone you have to produce a book at 3. I'm
Yeah,
just
the
getting started
reason
just because it's
I
yeah.
brought that up though
Mhm.
is what if Leah's could just promote the creative projects of that in plays a little bit to get them focused on the positive of what they're creating instead of focusing on gossiping and work being so
Yeah,
tough
yeah.
and
And 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds all the way up to adults, but they also should be focusing on real play and real outside play. Children should be outside. Children should be in dirt, right? Um, and then when they, because he's 3, so I can't, he's not going to sit down for 2 hours and write or whatever. But and then we could come and do a reflection, and then reflect upon our day. But you're right, it's all together. So a lot of playing, a lot of tactile, a lot of singing, a lot of dancing. And then we do that writing aspect as well, where we create. And he's really, really proud about his book. And I say, oh wow, look at your book. You published this book. And look, that person's reading your book. And so right now I'm just kind of getting him hype. So he'll want to do other books in the future and share other ideas. But I do honestly believe that our children need to be playing and outside and in music and the arts as well, in addition to developmentally ready academic content.
mm. Last question. In my work, I talk a lot about the power of doing our imperfect best, and what it means to me is we have a vision of the best we want to create, and then when things don't go quite the way we want them to, we learn from that experience and move forward rather than using the experience as an excuse to stop. But that's what it means to me. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
I love that question because it's in the imperfect that we find our purpose.
Mm,
That's another thing I should write
wow.
down too.
Wow.
um,
Wow.
because I wouldn't have slated myself here, but it was just the failing and the idea and the pushing. And now I'm just like, wait, this is it. I first started about music and then money. I thought money was going to be my thing. And I'm still passionate about financial literacy, but I've been teaching cultural competence, my whole teaching career. But cultural competence with creative thinking, well, what could this be? Well, why don't I call it intercultural creativity? And then here we are. I trademarked marked the name, so it belongs, to CAFFE Strategies. And let's see where this takes. You were at the beginning, Jason. You were there at the beginning, and let's see where this goes. But it was through the imperfect journey of finding the purpose of now what my life work is about. So we need to embrace the imperfect because it's that feedback that tells us that we're on the right track.
Well, powerful, powerful. I'm a huge fan of your work and your capacity to
Mhm.
help people build bridges within themselves and in between themselves and other people. Thanks for being you, Janine, and thanks for doing all you do in the world, and thanks for being on our Really Awesome podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm hopefully excited to get you on as a cafe speaker so we can do some conferences together.
Oh wow, I would that sounds like bliss to me. I love speaking, so
Yes, yes. And
thank
you and I
you.
have done events before, so
Yeah,
excited to
we've
be here.
shared stages.
Okay, awesome. And I'm excited to share a stage with you once again. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
allowing me to share my purpose and my story with your audience. I really do appreciate it.
awesome. Thanks so much, my friend. Oh my, I say this every week, but oh my gosh, I love that I get to talk to amazing people, and what isn't Janine amazing and her ideas, and I hope you got so much out of it. J- j- just just like everything we experience can give us inspiration to move our life forward at least a little bit, and sometimes a lot. And so thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. And until next week when I have another exciting guest, have a great week. Oh, and then I clicked the wrong thing. That didn't work. Till next week, have a wonderful week. Bye. Bye. See you next time.